Hello, everyone. Welcome. Happy Tuesday. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Alan.
And you are officially tuned in to the GG Dispatch. Each week on Tuesday, bright and early, we consolidate the week's biggest headlines in gaming news. Whether you're listening to us on your commute, during your workout, or you just have us on in the background, thank you so much for listening in. We see you out there, our handful of devotees, and appreciate you coming back week after week. So thank you again. All right. You know, Alan, you were kind of harassing me pretty much since we started this podcast about playing some GTA 5, and yes. Listeners will know I recently took advantage of some Black Friday deals. I picked up GTA 5 and Resident Evil 4 remake, and this past week I put an hour in to GTA 5. I started my journey off playing on the PS5, and I was introduced to, I did the first bank heist with the very dramatic shootout and everything.
I wanted to let listeners know as well that I'm joining you here. I'm going to do my second playthrough on Xbox Series X. And I kind of just wanted to take over this segment a little bit, kind of guide the conversation. So I'm interested in how you see it right now in 2023. So that first segment where you're just thrown straight into the fire. How did you feel about that?
I thought it was pretty, I thought it was a pretty great way of establishing conveyance, right? So like conveyance is this idea of like how you teach a player how to play a game. Thanks to Aaron Hansen for that. I learned that in his very popular Mega Man X video, which is amazing. And if you haven't watched it, you need to go and find it right now. Why Mega Man X is like amazing. But anyway, so it's a really great example of conveyance in terms of like familiarizing yourself with the mini map, controls, targeting, things like that, taking cover, etc. And yeah, it definitely drops you right into the action. And I felt invested in this heist right off the bat. And it squares you up with a fleet of cops like right away. So it sort of establishes that idea of like, you're going to be on the wrong side of the law when you're playing this game all the time. So get used to it now. And yeah, I thought it was a great intro. Yeah.
Okay. And so, just to kind of, to help people who don't necessarily play Grand Theft Auto or haven't played it before, I kind of explain what happens. So you kind of go into this bank heist and you get a bit of a time jump, a time skip to sort of present day in that world where you see one of the characters in the bank heist. How did you like that transition over? Did you like the time skip? Did you not like that? Because go ahead.
I think it made sense. I think, obviously there's going to be a lot of gaps there that need to be filled. And I'm guessing that's going to be part of the narrative is figuring out how we got from point A to point B with this character. And so, I'm already kind of filling in some of the gaps, a little bit. And I gotta say the writing is so good. Like
it is.
The writing is really good. Like, and again, I don't want to spoil it for folks who might be inspired by our journey into GTA 5 to pick it up and get into the narrative themselves. But like, the character is sort of having a session with a therapist, and just the way that he's sort of naturally talking about the frustrations he has with his son and, like the things that he had to go through when he was younger. There's a lot of expletives. Obviously there's a lot of bad. I think you hear, the F word, like probably 500 times in the first like 2 minutes of that game. But beneath that is I think a very compelling human story and experience. And so I'm really excited about following that journey even more. So yeah, I think the writing is really great. Especially when I started getting into Franklin's story with Lamar and everything. I was cracking up. I was just busting up laughing. Like,
those two are incredible. Like
Yeah.
during the pandemic, the two voice actors actually went back and recreated some of the scenes because they're both in Southern California, so they kind of found a house that looked very much like the one in the game, and it went viral because people just absolutely love them.
Oh, that's
Now,
hilarious.
in terms of how they introduce Franklin and Lamar, did you like that? Because I feel like it does a really good job of sort of seamlessly taking you from Michael's story, who's the character you start with,
Yeah.
over to Franklin's.
Oh yeah, no, it was a great transition. I really liked that. I mean, at first I was like, I wasn't sure what was going to happen. Like I wasn't sure that I didn't realize that that was another key character of yours. I thought that was sort of an interesting play on, um, again, continuing the idea of conveyance where it's like the world is your oyster. It's an open world game that it placed you into this random person's perspective to control them. I didn't actually connect that this is one of like the three core characters until, took me a good couple minutes or so. I was just like, oh, I'm just learning that I can just jump in a car and go on a chase and like avoid cops. And that's just like part of the play. And then I'm going to go back to Michael and the actual story. And this was just sort of like an aside. But then I realized, oh no, like this is the start of my introduction to this other character, Franklin. So yeah, that's how seamless it was. It was like, oh, no, this is just another character, and it just worked really well. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that.
So, are you the type of person who kind of like goes out and just starts exploring that city of Los Santos, just very heavily inspired by Los Angeles?
Yeah,
And
I didn't. So it's interesting. So I finished the first mission, the bank heist, flashback with Michael, and then I got to Franklin Lamar, returned the car. Man, that car was messed up when I brought it back. Like I was learning the driving controls and everything, and it was just sort of like definitely not in good shape when I brought it back. But and then I went back to Franklin's house, and I was kind of looking around, saw some things, and I know I could have left the house and like gone exploring, but I didn't. I just went. I think I actually meant to like look at something else in his room, and I went to bed. Um, and so like I fell asleep and time passed in the story and everything. And then I went out and I got a call. I got the call, I think, from Simeon to go to the shop or whatever. And so I did inadvertently sort of move the story forward, but I realized after the fact, I'm like, oh man, I could have gone and just like started putzing around, and
yeah.
I didn't.
So, uh, I kind of feel like the game is just extremely cinematic in a way that you don't see in many other video games. Did you feel that at all, or you kind of felt like it was still very video gamey?
Um, I don't know. I feel like, and maybe it's just again, talking like 2023 to 2013, right? I feel like with the release of games like God of War, in 2018 and Ragnarok and things like that, and there are certainly more cinematic games now than, or at least like they're more like in your face about like a cinematic presentation than this was. Like definitely I think the introduction of Los Santos as a city felt very cinematic to me, but otherwise like the opening scene, the flashback and stuff, I didn't really get that sensation as much. But I think, at the time, again, if I picked up this game in 2013, I probably would have been like, oh wow, like this really is sort of like painting a picture, and like I feel like I'm entering into this sort of like not quite Goodfellas, but like that sort of vibe of going to get into the seedy underbelly of this city, and I feels like I am watching like either a TV show, a miniseries, a movie with those characters. But I think
I'm
recent
kind of
releases have kind of dampened that a little bit for me. Yeah.
Yes, I'm glad you brought that up. So, let's say if this game was released in July of 2023, do you feel like it would have felt old, or do you think it hangs? Like it's held up so far from what you've seen.
I mean, yeah, I think it definitely holds. I don't feel like it's 10 years old. Like I'll say that. Like I don't feel like I'm booting up a retro title by any means. I think, there are definitely, yeah, I think it is going to be interesting too. The more time I spend in GTA 5, and then looking at like the GTA 6 trailer again, and like as more footage comes out of the game and what it looks like, et cetera, to be able to compare those two things. But yeah, I think that it definitely holds up visually, and I mean the gameplay too absolutely holds up. It's pretty timeless, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, so Rockstar has actually put in a lot of work because even when I originally played this back in, I think it was 2018, they had already put out an update for the PS4 version of it.
Mm-hmm.
And they've updated it yet again. Like this has ray tracing. You can choose between fidelity mode and performance mode. So I want to know, did you go in there and change anything, or you just kind of went with the default, which I think is fidelity at 30 frames per second?
I didn't touch any of the settings. So yeah, I think it's just rocking it in fidelity mode, whatever the standard is, the default is. That's what I've
Okay, yeah,
got
they
going
go
on. Yeah.
hard on like it's. I think it's hitting pretty close to 4K, but it is 30 FPS. But you get like a lot of nice reflections, ray tracing they added. So
I was
they
gonna say, I mean, it looks
definitely.
good. Like it's not even like, I would say it's not even like the aesthetic that looks, and they've obviously spent some time maintaining this game. Like you don't maintain the sort of player base that GTA 5 has if you aren't taking good care of the game all the time. So I think Rockstar has shown they're very good stewards of the IP, like not even stewards of the IP, like maintaining that IP by investing in making sure it looks as good as it can on the latest consoles and that sort of thing. So I think that definitely bore out because like I said, I couldn't tell that it was an old game. Like that didn't stick out to me at all. I'm like, oh no, this looks good. Like this looks like a solid
Okay,
title.
I'm super happy to hear that after I harassed you into this journey. Because for me, like that's one of the best openings I've ever played in a video game. Maybe the best one. Just the way everything transitions so smoothly from that start where you're just thrown into the fire to then the time skip to then seamlessly go because you think, oh, this is the character that I'm gonna follow, but no, you're
And
immediately
then you get
tossed
handed off
over.
like almost
Yeah,
immediately, right? It
exactly,
kind of twists on
exactly.
you.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm glad you're enjoying it so far. So hopefully you can continue to make progress. And this will be hard because of the holidays, but we'll see how that goes.
Oh, no.
Maybe not. We
I'm
have
off
another.
work starting on Friday. I get to enjoy a holiday break thanks to the courtesy of my job. Like I have a couple little
Okay.
things I'll need to do, but like yeah, I'm definitely planning on spending some time, reading some comics over the break and playing a lot of games. Um, and so yeah, looking forward to digging into this. As I mentioned, I did pick up RE4 remake as well, and admittedly, I've been putting a lot more time into that game. I played it once many moons ago when it first came out, and so playing it again now, uh, I can see why people were really excited and it got so well reviewed with the quality of life improvements, the upgrades to the visuals, etc. And so yeah, I'm making some steady progress on that game. I think I'll probably be able to knock it out in the next couple of gaming sessions, 2-3 sessions, and then I'll be able to go back to GTA 5, put a bit more time into that as I'm juggling some of the other backlog I'm working on. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's. I'll try to keep in sync with you in all the missions so we can have a nice conversation as you're making your way through this for the first
Yes,
time.
absolutely. I'm excited. So far I'm loving my time in Los Santos. So I'm looking forward to learning more about the game and
Oh, and
its
a quick
characters.
thing. It's something kind of like dumb, but like when you walk out of his aunt's house, the where he basically is like his home base for now.
Mm-hmm.
If you walk out and you go to the left and you stand in front of the garage that where he parks where you can park your car,
Mm-hmm.
if you look back into the background, like you get an amazing view of the city. Just
Oh,
FYI, check that out because it always like blows me away how the way they I don't know like the exact like technical term, but they're doing some cool stuff with like the way they're rendering that. So just check that out.
all right. All right. I'll keep an eye out for that. Okay. Well, with all that being said, obviously getting into GTA 5, fans of GTA 5, hopefully you weren't too taken out of the core of our show, which is covering the news of this last week. But yeah, we're looking forward to digging into GTA 5. But in the meantime, we have got 6 stories to cover today, and so we'll dig right into it, starting with something that I sort of saw coming. We had talked a bit about the uh, the live service strategy, and you know there was a lot of talk about whether or not Naughty Dog was going to be able to pull off The Last of Us Online or factions. And just a few days ago, they officially announced that The Last of Us Online is officially canceled. And so this is actually from Naughty Dog directly. This is a press release they put out on December 14th. It says, we realize many of you have been anticipating news around the project that we've been calling The Last of Us Online. There's no easy way to say this. We've made the incredibly difficult decision to stop development on that game. We know this news will be tough for many, especially our dedicated The Last of Us factions community, who have been following our multiplayer ambitions ardently. We're equally crushed at the studio as we were looking forward to putting it in your hands. We wanted to share with you some background on how we came to the decision. And then it goes on to basically talk about how the scope of The Last of Us Online would require so much of Naughty Dog's resources in the years to come to maintain it and continue to provide ongoing content that it would detract from their ability to create single player games, like S tier single player games that have really helped to define the PlayStation exclusive experience. And so ultimately they decided to abandon the project. So yeah, I don't know, Alan. What were your thoughts when this news came in? You know, what are you thinking about this?
It was not at all surprising. We already knew that they let go of a lot of people. You don't let go of that many people if you kind of are starting to wind down and getting ready to cancel something.
Yeah,
I think what it did, bigger picture, it's more worrying for Sony because earlier in the year they put out a report for their investors, kind of showing what their plans were for their investments of how they're going to handle like the amount of revenue that they would invest into live service games, and you see it kind of like flipping from mostly investing in single player to mostly investing in live service games. I think it was like a 60-40 split in favor of live service.
right.
So I think that they've really hit a wall here, and they're finding out that the whole live service thing is a whole heck of a lot harder to do, and a lot more expensive to do. And I do wonder if maybe this is why Jim Ryan decided to step away. He's like, I'm going out on a high. I'm not going to let this thing blow up in my face. And so I'm out the door, basically. I'm retiring. And hopefully Sony kind of right the ship and go back to what they do best, which is, to me, is single player games. And it fits in with, how they work as a corporation. Like they have that part. Well, I think they're sort of under the parent company of Sony, which also owns like Sony Pictures, and they do a lot of entertainment and media. And they clearly want things like The Last of Us TV show to exist, but like that's based off of the incredible single player narrative games that they make, not off of live service stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's interesting to think about. I mean, live service has a draw and has an appeal. Like obviously live service makes a ton of money. There are, I think Genshin Impact's made like $4 billion or something. Like, there are a lot of live service titles that do very well. My concern, I know that we've talked about this before, and I think a lot of the conversation that's happening is there's only so much, there's only so much oxygen in the room for live service titles, right? And I'm not saying that it's a bad thing that Sony is, researching, investing, trying to develop a strong portfolio of live service titles. Great. Like I think if they can get a hit or two off of that, if they can get a Genshin Impact or a PUBG or Apex or whatever, like out of that work, then sure, like it'll probably end up paying off in the end. I think in the meantime, we're going to see a lot of projects start and stop. But ultimately, I think it's important that we're also considering that things like this are going to happen. Like Naughty Dog is not willing to abandon its single player efforts because they realized the amount of time, attention, energy, effort that goes into maintaining a live service game, right? Like you have to be able to keep that base engaged, and there's got to be new content, and so like you're not releasing one game and walking away. You're releasing a foundation, and you're constantly releasing new games, a new game, quote unquote, every 3 to 6 months, right?
Yep.
And there's no room, right? There's no additional room to create those single player experiences in that model for that studio. And then sure, like you could spin off, like you could be like, okay, cool, we're gonna keep, we're gonna ramp up heads, hire a bunch of people to maintain this studio, and then we're gonna spin off and we're gonna do the actual Naughty Dog's, single player stuff. But again, like you need to be able to make the profit on it. You need to be able to have the money to be able to do those things. And that doesn't come overnight. And that assumes that your live service game is a success, right? So yeah, I think it's really interesting to see the trajectory of live service games and development. And I hope that, ultimately it works out. Obviously it did not work out for Naughty Dog. And honestly, it does make me a little concerned, because if a studio like Naughty Dog can't pull it off, like what, like who can, right? Like, I guess, is Sony just hoping that one of like a studio that they're investing in, or like helping to redirect or pivot into a live service model instead, because they can commit all of their resources to the game, they'll be more successful? Like, I don't know, but
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just corporating. Like Wall Street wants that annual recurring revenue. They want that monthly recurring revenue, and this live service is the way to get there. But in my
yeah,
opinion, their money is better invested. They took all that money to shove into live service, and you spread it across what 50, 60, 70 indie developers, and you get a wave of indie titles of varying degrees and scopes, and you put that into PS Plus Extra and Premium. I think that's how you get your annual recurring revenue, your monthly recurring revenue, knowing
right,
players knowing that they're always going to have new games coming in, a big back
yeah.
catalog to get to. I think
Or
keep
subsidizing the
better
first
play.
party titles. Like, I get it. Like,
Yeah,
I think somebody had mentioned a comment like, like the indie titles don't make any money. And yeah, sure. No shocker there, right? Like you're not going to like change the world over, putting out like a Hi-Fi Rush. It's not going to make you like $1 billion. But I think it's about building the catalog for the recurring monthly cost. Or, if you're able to use some of those funds to then subsidize getting first party titles onto your service, right? Like, again, even if it's not free, I think we talked about this before, even if it's like, if you're a PlayStation Premium member, then, for the first, 7 days after a new title comes out, you get half off the digital copy, right? Or something like that. It's something that where you can be like, okay, cool. Like I can get more value out of this subscription, and, move more units and make more sales by making this service more valuable. So yeah. Um, yeah, so we'll see. I'm really interested now to see what Naughty Dog is going to do now that they've kind of officially shifted their efforts away from Last of Us Online. So time will tell. And I'm also interested to see, really the fans of The Last of Us Online were folks who really enjoyed factions, and they were a very vocal crowd, but arguably kind of a smaller crowd and more of a niche crowd. So I'm wondering if this ultimately will harm Naughty Dog's reputation at the end of the day, or if it's helping Naughty Dog's reputation at the end of the day, right? Like, and from just a cursory overview of responses to this, it seemed like most folks were happy with the news. Like,
yeah,
not obviously not happy that the game was like a game was canceled in general. Like, obviously they wanted Naughty Dog to be successful, but like happy that this experiment wouldn't be followed any further, and we can look forward to a single player game from Naughty Dog again. So, all right, time will tell. Next, we have Death Stranding movie coming from A24 and Kojima Productions. So this is a press release that was posted on the Kojima Productions website. So A24, the studio behind Academy Award-winning films such as Everything Everywhere All at Once, has announced a collaboration with Kojima Productions to adapt Hideo Kojima's acclaimed video game Death Stranding into a live-action feature film. The announcement comes ahead of Kojima Productions' 8th anniversary on December 16th, making a new milestone in video game to film adaptations. Promises to delve into the mystery surrounding the apocalyptic event called the Death Stranding, which blurred lines between life and death and brought forth nightmarish creatures into a world on the brink of collapse. It's kind of funny because, folks joke about like, they don't need to make a movie because the game was a movie. But I am sort of excited about, seeing A24 bring the movie to life. I always speaking of cinematic experiences, I think I really respect Hideo Kojima's ability to create cinematic experiences in games. Um, but I don't know. What about you, Alan? Have you? I think I might ask you this before. Like, did you get into Death Stranding? Were you a fan of it? Did you just kind of see it like as a walking simulator? Like,
Not yet. I am interested in playing it. It's in the eternal backlog. We'll see if I get to it.
yeah,
But
for
I
sure.
think this is a good partnership. I think that A24 will give Kojima latitude in terms of the stuff he wants to try because he's not about like, oh, let me make just a normal movie. He wants to do something probably weird, experimental. But I also feel like A24 with their experience can kind of help guide him through this first go around.
Yeah,
So I'm interested to see what it comes out to be. We'll see.
yeah, yeah, for sure. I will be there. I'll get my ticket. I have AMC A list, so I'll go. Maybe I'll see it twice. Um, All right. Suicide Squad game spoilers run wild online as Warner Brothers tries to squash leaks. And so this is from Polygon's Michael McWhorter. Rocksteady Studios and Warner Brothers are trying to contain Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League leaks, including major story spoilers and unannounced playable characters, as details on next year's game spread across the internet. The leak, some of which appears to have come from an alpha test of the game, is upsetting not only to its developer and publisher, but fans of Rocksteady's Batman games as well. Some stories, while unconfirmed, could have major implications for Rocksteady's Arkhamverse. So basically, there was a closed alpha test, and bits and pieces of this story are coming online, even though there was an NDA signed for these things. And the article, if you want to seek out the article, it continues to go into what some of those spoilers might be. But I mean, this game has been kind of plagued for quite some time. But I mean,
It is cursed for sure.
it's a cursed title, and this certainly isn't doing it any favors. But yeah, I don't know, Alan, any thoughts on this?
I mean, it's 2023. People are gonna want to leak. I don't get it. Like, let people get excited and happy and enjoy something. And you know, there's something magical about going into a game or a game announcement or anything else, and kind of like be pleasantly surprised by something.
Mm-hmm.
But like we said, this game is cursed. Personally, I have like zero interest in it. It just like the gameplay just looks so boring and generic. So it's not affecting me, but it sucks for fans of the game that were looking forward to it, and it seems like fans of other series as well.
Yeah, and I mean it's supposed to be coming out on February 2nd, I guess. So, that's still a while that people now are going to have to be dodging spoilers online. Um yeah,
The
it's one
features
more
your friend.
obstacle that they didn't need. What's that?
The mute features your friend.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mute. If maybe you already did though. You might have already muted like hashtag Suicide Squad and things like that. So, who knows? Um yeah. Here's another interesting one: Baldur's Gate 3 not coming to Xbox Game Pass. When I saw this story, I was really interested. So this is on IGN.com from Kat Bailey. So this says Baldur's Gate 3 is now available on Xbox, but don't expect it on Game Pass anytime soon. Speaking with IGN as part of a sweeping spoiler-filled interview on the making of Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios founder Sven Vinke, I think it might be Sven, explained why the award-winning role-playing game won't be part of Xbox's subscription service. Quote, "Oh, we always said from the get-go it wasn't going to be on Game Pass. It's not going to be on Game Pass." Vink asked whether Xbox had tried to pay the studio to put Baldur's Gate 3 on the service. Describing it as a sensitive question, Vink pointed out that Larian Studios is in the business of making a game that has a beginning, middle, and an end. He also touted Baldur's Gate 3's lack of microtransactions, which has been praised in some quarters. He went on to say, quote, we made a big game, so I think there's a fair price to be paid for that, and I think that's okay. We don't charge you microtransactions on top of it, so you get what you pay for upfront. It's a big, meaty game, so I think that should be able to exist as it is. This is what allows us to continue making other games. So obviously, I'm a recent, not necessarily convert, but a recent enjoyer of Game Pass. I'm glad to see the library of games that it has. But when I saw the story, I was really intrigued because one of the things that came out in those big leaks a number of months ago around Xbox, where like the roadmap got spilled, right? And like there was all this talk about like the cloud digital gaming console and like all their plans for the next like 5 or 10 years or whatever. Part of that leak was a set of emails about forecasted values of titles, upcoming titles for Game Pass. And Baldur's Gate 3 was on that list, and the value was like painfully low. Like very, very low. And so I thought it was really interesting. And this was after this leak had come after it had come out to critical acclaim and was getting sold like all crazy and stuff. And so people were sort of looking at that and being like, well, there was a miss, right? Like that was a swing and a miss from Microsoft. And so part of me is like, well, yeah, I mean, they wouldn't want to go into Game Pass because, and obviously these conversations were happening sooner, but like, obviously Microsoft wasn't putting the value on trying to lure them to Game Pass to the point that made it compelling enough for them to be interested in doing that. And so, yeah, why would they want to do that? They're doing just fine. Like they're selling plenty of copies without it. But I guess Alan, as a more ardent Game Pass fan, like what are your thoughts on this for Baldur's Gate 3 and maybe just games coming to Game Pass in general?
So yeah, like you said, at the time there was no hype around Baldur's Gate 3. No one was talking about Baldur's Gate 3. Now everyone's talking about Baldur's Gate 3, and it's the game of the year at the TGAs. So obviously the valuation changes, and Microsoft knows that they're not going to go and like, yeah, here's what we're going to initially offer you, when no one was saying anything about your video game. So my opinion is that it probably will. Like, listen, if Papa Phil shows up with the Brinks truck and it's the
Yeah.
right number on it,
Yeah.
Baldur's Gate 3 will be on Game Pass,
I think
right?
so. I think it's going to be a little bit. I think it would, like, never say never. I think it'll end up on Game
I
Pass
agree, 100%. It'll be a bit. It's not going to be.
2025. I think 2025. I think summer 2025. Um, I think they're going to run a few sales. Then they're going to do some digital sales and things like that. And then like in a couple years, as like a summer thing, maybe there'll start being some inklings and some rumors about what Larian's next title will be. And as part of that campaign to like start the conversation going, Baldur's Gate 3 drops on Game Pass to like bring some more players in or something. But like I think that there's still plenty of value to be extracted from players who want to purchase the game and will traditionally buy the game before it makes that move. But I do think it will end up on Game Pass eventually.
I think it could go fall 24. Like, if there's a gap in Microsoft's sort of offerings for 2024, like if something has to get pushed back or something, you know what? That could be our fall sort of game on Xbox. And like I
Yeah.
said, there has to be a number where it makes sense for Larry to go, yeah, we'll put that on Game Pass. So, I think
Yeah.
that to say that, this isn't a Game Pass game is a lie. He's just
I
posturing.
mean,
That's
it's
his
just not
job,
right
though.
now. It's
Yeah, yeah.
it's not a
That's his
Game Pass
job.
game yet. And I
Yeah.
I want to think that they're probably having a lot of conversations with Microsoft in the back right now, because like they just got it onto Xbox Series S, right? So they did get the title onto
Yeah, they know
the
each other
Xbox.
very well after trying desperately to get it working on the Xbox Series S.
And I gotta think that Microsoft appreciates the fact that they like we talked about in the last episode, like that they put in the effort to make it work on the console, right? Like that's a show of good faith on Larian's side, that they aren't just gonna like leave them high and dry and be like, oh well, sorry, guess your folks with the Xbox Series S, which makes up the bulk of their user base, like you were mentioning before, right? Like, guess that just means they don't get to play this game, but they wanted to make it work, and so yeah, I think that's a good
Yeah, and like you were saying,
good point.
Microsoft ended up sending in sort of like a dream team of like coders and Xbox architecture people there to try to like get it working as well. So that's what I mean by like they have a good relationship. So I think that eventually it will. I think probably sooner than 2025.
Yeah. All right. We'll see what happens. Um, all right. New PS5 Pro rumors are circling around. This is from Game Rant. There's a new Sony patent that seems to support the recent PS5 Pro rumors. This is from Mark Keever. A new patent filed by Sony seems to support the recent leaks about the PlayStation 5 Pro and one of its biggest rumored features. So it may feature a proprietary hardware-driven upscaling technology similar to NVIDIA's DLSS. The patent describes a method of using asset-aware data and level of detail data to improve visuals and performance in gaming. And while rumors align with the leaks and patents, fans should still await for official confirmation from Sony regarding its existence. And so, yeah, the rumors themselves have sort of reached a bit of a fever pitch in the last week and a half. And this, this additional patent is only seeming to add to that. Obviously, the year is nearly over. We have like 2 weeks until we're in 2024. When do you think we get the PS5 Pro confirmation, Alan?
Oh man,
Like from Sony, like when's the press release or the showcase, or the state of
I think
play
Summer
or
Games
whatever?
Fest, Summer
Hmm.
Games Fest, or around Summer Games Fest. Not maybe not necessarily at
Really?
Summer
You think
Games
it's going to
Fest.
be like that long? You think it's going to be like 6 months?
Yeah. Oh, like I said, adjacent to Summer Games Fest, because nowadays it's kind of like with E3 gone, it's just like it becomes a weird time where everyone throughout the year can just make announcements. So I think maybe April, kind of maybe butting into May or maybe even into May, we
Okay.
would get that
Okay.
announcement to kind of
Uh,
kind of be at least like I said, adjacent to Summer Games Fest.
I'm huh. I'm going to make a more
Because we
aggressive
just got
claim.
that PS5, quote unquote slim. Like that was very recent.
That's true. Okay. Okay. I was going to make a bold claim there, but you're right on the slim. Gosh. I was going to say that we would hear something on the Pro before Rebirth comes out. Um but like late February, like right around there. But maybe it is more in that April timeline like you were talking about. So, but you know what? I'm gonna put my stake in February. I will. I'm gonna say I think it'll be earlier in the year. I'll say around February. You can hold on to April, May, and we'll see
Okay.
which one of us lands
Now, have you had
closer.
a chance to check out some of the rumors? I think I sent you a video. I'm not sure if you had a chance to see it.
I was out of town the last couple of days, so I didn't get a chance to watch it. But I know that there have been, like I said, a lot of the rumors have been circling
So
around, and it's good kind of like breakdown of
there
that.
are two camps. There's sort of like one where it's like it's just a base clock increase. They're gonna make they're gonna supercharge the chip a little bit, and then you got the other camp who says this gonna have an extra AI chip and it's gonna be a bigger GPU. And so like
Mm,
honestly, I always thought the PS5 Pro was just not gonna be a thing. I didn't think that they'd be able to squeeze enough out in terms of like where AMD is in their sort of chip fabrication and design process. And
yeah,
so I thought it would be closer to Camp A, which is like, oh, they kind of gonna just up the clocks and that's about it. I'm like, that's not worth it, for how much money you have to charge for that. It doesn't make any sense. So I didn't think it'd be possible, I didn't think it'd be worth it. But now that I saw that video that I sent you from a channel called Moore's Law is Dead, it's a very interesting channel. He covers a lot of uh, rumors and leaks, mostly in like the PC side of things. So like AMD, Nvidia, Intel, and so the way he broke it down made it a lot more interesting, and it convinced me that we are going to get a PS5 Pro because the
mm,
way he broke it down, they're not going to be able to get a whole lot of performance for not much extra cost to the
right,
point where they could basically launch it at about 500 what you pay now for the PS5 and bump down the current PS5 in price, which makes a lot more sense to me.
yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm interested. This iteration too, if they do the PS5 Pro, also could make a really great sandbox and playground for what ultimately will become the PS6, right? So like I like to think that some of those hardware features, some of those network features, some of the things that they want to build into the PS5 Pro are sort of like alpha tests for like a more refined iterated version of that in the next actual full-fledged console. And that's why I think those half step models are valuable. The slim obviously is more of like an aesthetic choice, but I think for early adapters who are willing to spend the extra money, like real like Sony fanboys and devotees that really want to, stay up
Oh,
to
I'm
date
in
with
it
the
just for that
hardware.
GTA 6 bump. That I'm here for that alone.
Yeah, and I mean that's I mean, and that's why I'm saying, like, I think it would be, again, it's like really aggressive, I know, but I think it would be interesting if, like when they're talking about FF7 Rebirth, which is like the most anticipated game of the coming year, and also, GTA 6 around the corner and things like that, for them to be able to say, like, okay, we have these really big games coming out that are asking a lot, even of the hardware that we already have. Like, welcome, like, we want to introduce you to the PS5 Pro. Like, we need to take you that extra half step so that you can really enjoy these experiences that we're crafting for you. And then, again, like, we get that into the field, and users use it, and then, now we have actual, like, user data to then bring back, get feedback, and then work it into the next few years until the PS6 arrives. I'm also wondering too if this is kind of impacting the overall, like, timeline of generations, right? Like, hardware generations, because, usually we're looking at about like 7 years a generation, right? But with these, like, half steps, it's okay, I think, to elongate that a bit. So I wonder if, instead of looking at, PS5 just had its 3-year anniversary, let's say PS5 Pro comes out next summer, like right around where the halfway point typically would be. Um, Maybe we get an extra year, right? Maybe a year and a half out of that quote generation, end quote, because of those hardware bumps, and that just becomes more standard. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and like I was saying, that video that I sent you from that channel, Moore's Law is Dead, he brought up an interesting theory in that he thinks that because of the PS5 Pro, there have been zero rumors about sort of a half step Xbox. The only thing we do know is from the leak is that sort of like digital version of the Series X. So he thinks that they're going to partner with Rockstar and say, play it best on PS5 Pro, GTA 6.
yeah, probably something like that. No, it makes sense. Makes sense. All right. Um, So, last story, unfortunately, a little bit of a bummer here. Max Payne actor James McCaffrey dies at age 65. This is from Wesleyan Pool on IGN. So, Max Payne actor James McCaffrey died at the age of 65. TMZ released a statement from a rep revealing that he had passed away on Sunday, December 17th, surrounded by friends and family after a battle with bone marrow cancer. Quote, one of Dick Wolf's proteges, McCaffrey went on to a successful 35-year career in television and film. Trained at the Actors Studio, he never lost his love for creating characters. However, his good looks often pushed him toward leading man roles. And yeah, so just some tweets of kind of consolation. And Sam Lake from Remedy said, "I'm heartbroken to hear the sad news of James McCaffrey's passing. We worked together for more than 25 years, a lovely man and a dear friend, a key part of the Remedy family, and he was a brilliant actor. No one could do what he did better than him." So yeah, bit of a bummer to hear that. Max Payne really was a sort of um, Remedy is getting more attention now with Alan Wake 2, really great work with Control and things like that. But, Max Payne really was a sort of defining title of, experimentation, gameplay, and all kinds of really interesting mechanics that we hadn't really seen before in games. And, we talked about it a few times already in this podcast, but like that cinematic experience, right? And I think Max Payne really helped to define and elevate that idea. So rest in peace, Mr. McCaffrey. And yeah, wishing the best to his family and friends in this time. All right. Recently put up the list for the Geekly Grind's best games of 2023. And I know we're running a little bit longer than usual. So what I wanted to do was just kind of, Alan, I wanted to hear your top 5 games of 2023. And then I'm just going to kind of recap which one stood out to me in this crazy year of games that we had.
Yeah, so in no particular order, I really had fun with Super Mario Brothers Wonder, Metroid Prime Remastered, Resident Evil 4 remake, Hi-Fi Rush, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Shredder's Revenge. Great co-op on that one.
Yeah. Shredder's Revenge was a lot of fun for sure. For me, I had Armored Core. These ones are in no particular order as well. So Armored Core 6, Octopath Traveler 2, Lies of P, Final Fantasy 16. Those ones are in no particular order, all really great games that I enjoyed. But I did identify Baldur's Gate 3 as my game of the year. Again, just the sheer amount of possibility that you have, the world, the voice acting, everything else. I just had a fantastic time with Baldur's Gate 3, and I just know that I'm going to be lost in those worlds for many, many dozens, if not hundreds of hours. And so, yeah, congrats to Larry and the team, or to Swen and the Larian team on putting out a fantastic game. So, and finally, just a little bit of housekeeping. We will be recording slightly early for Christmas, because our usual recording day, we usually record on Mondays right before the show, but that's Christmas Day. And so we'll be enjoying some time with family and friends, on Sunday and Monday. So we'll be recording the episode Saturday, the 23rd. And so if we aren't covering a particular piece of news that might come out after those 2 days, that's why. So just a heads up there. But I think that's just about it. Alan, do you have anything in the deals corner? Any other things to add?
Absolutely, I do. So, in the kind of that last holiday push, if you kind of need something to get for a gamer in your life, Best Buy kind of has the sort of the last days of their sales. Some the standouts on that one are Star Wars Jedi Survivor. That's $34.99. Resident Evil 4 Remake, $29.99. And for you, Jeremy, for Octopath Travel, we want to get some copies moving over on Amazon, $29.99 for the PlayStation 5 version of Octopath Traveler 2.
Nice.
Also, the Xbox Series X is basically $349.99 everywhere. However, I know that some Walmarts still have that Diablo 4 bundle for the same price. So hey, that's a free game thrown in there. And just to kind of remind everyone that we did have that leak from the FTC Microsoft case, and they do plan to go sort of that all digital Xbox Series X console. So this might not be a bad time to pick that up. And at least, even if you're like a mostly digital gamer, it's not a bad idea to still have that disc there just in case you need it.
Yeah. Physical media forever. All right. Thank you for that spotlight. And I think that's all that we have this time around, everyone. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, I'm Jeremy.
I'm Alan.
Keep gaming.
See ya.